We are KB and Jasmine, and welcome to Beyond the Silver Screen.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're diving into the world of Akira Kurosawa. We're going beyond the typical biographical stuff and going deep into his films, his influences, what made his style so revolutionary.
Exactly. We're going to unpack some common misconceptions
Yeah.
about Kurosawa and about Japanese cinema in general, especially those from early American scholarship.
So it's not just about Kurosawa the man, but how his work fits into a larger cultural and cinematic context.
Precisely. Early studies often focused on auteur theory, framing Kurosawa as this lone genius.
The solitary auteur.
Yeah, but that view tends to overlook the rich tapestry of influences and collaborations and historical circumstances that shaped his work.
Right.
And it leads to this oversimplified idea of Japaneseness, as if his films were somehow representative of an entire nation's artistic expression.
Right, like trying to understand a symphony. By only focusing on the conductor,
Exactly.
you miss the entire orchestra.
Yeah. And it's important to remember that Kurosawa was working within specific genres, particularly jidaigeki, which are Japanese period films, often set in the Edo period.
Ah, jidaigeki. Lots of samurai and sword fights. So how did Kurosawa's films challenge the conventions of this genre?
Well, jidaigeki. They often presented a romanticized view of Edo Japan, a sort of idealized past. Think of the classic, often formulaic, Toei studio films, Kurosawa. However, he wasn't afraid to explore the grittier, more complex aspects of history. He didn't shy away from showing the human cost of war, the moral dilemmas, and the struggles of ordinary people.
So he wasn't afraid to shake things up.
Not at all. He was known for his bold directorial choices. Take Throne of Blood, for example. His use of rapid-fire dialogue, almost unintelligible at times, was a deliberate departure from the more stylized speech patterns often seen in jidaigeki.
It sounds like he was almost daring the audience to keep up.
Yeah, you could say that. He wanted to engage viewers on a visceral level, to challenge their expectations. And Throne of Blood is also a great example of how Kurosawa drew inspiration from traditional Japanese theater, particularly kabuki and no, but in a way that was utterly cinematic.
So he's weaving these diverse influences together, creating something entirely new and unique in the process.
That's what makes his work so fascinating. He took elements from different artistic traditions, combined them with his own vision, and transformed them into something truly powerful. Another striking aspect of his films is the way he uses nature.
Yes. I was struck by how the environment is more than just a backdrop in his films. It often feels like an active force, shaping the characters and their destinies.
Exactly. Unlike the more symbolic use of nature that we see in many traditional Japanese films, Kurosawa's approach was far more visceral and dynamic.
I'm thinking of the scorching heat and sudden downpours in Stray Dog, which seem to mirror the inner turmoil of the characters and the chaotic post-war landscape of Japan.
That's a great example. And in High and Low, the contrast between Gondo's luxurious hilltop home and the kidnapper's shack in the valley is incredibly powerful.
It's like the physical landscape itself reflects the social and economic divide between the characters.
Precisely. And remember, Kurosawa wasn't just a filmmaker, he was also a writer and a painter. His essay, The Scenery of Tohoku, reveals his deep connection to the natural world and how he saw it through an artist's lens. It's fascinating to see how this sensibility translates into his films, particularly Dreams, where he blurs the lines between reality and imagination.
So for Kurosawa, nature isn't just a pretty setting. It's a powerful force that interacts with the characters and shapes their experiences.
Absolutely. And this leads us to another key element of his filmmaking, the complex interplay of imagery and language.
Yes. I'm curious to hear more about that, especially how it plays out in Stray Dog.
Well, in Stray Dog, there's this deliberate distance created between what we see and what we hear. It's not just about telling a linear story. It's about creating a multi-layered experience that challenges our perceptions.
Can you give us an example?
Sure. There's a scene where a character, he's trying to read a note that's right up close to his face.
Ah, yes. It's visually jarring. Because realistically, he wouldn't be able to focus on something that close.
Exactly. It's Kurosawa's way of visually representing an abstract concept, the character's myopic thinking, his inability to grasp the bigger picture, and this technique highlights the importance of visual language in Kurosawa's work and how he uses it to convey complex ideas.
It seems like Kurosawa is constantly playing with our expectations, forcing us to pay attention not just to the dialogue, but to how images and sounds work together to create meaning.
That's right. And this masterful use of visual storytelling is particularly evident in his exploration of abstract concepts like madness, and memory, especially in the context of a rapidly transforming post-war Japan.
It's fascinating how Kurosawa connects personal struggles with these larger societal shifts. Can you tell us more about this recurring theme of the repatriated soldier in his films?
The repatriated soldier is a powerful symbol of dislocation, of trying to reintegrate into a society that has fundamentally changed. It reflects the struggle to reconcile memories of the past with the realities of the present.
And this theme appears in several of his films, right?
Yeah. Yes, you see it in One Wonderful Sunday, Drunken Angel, The Quiet Duel, The Idiot, and even in Dreams. Each film explores different facets of this experience, showcasing the emotional and psychological complexities of returning home after war.
It's important to remember the historical context here too, right?
Yeah.
The American occupation of Japan had a huge impact on how filmmakers could depict war and its aftermath.
Absolutely. The occupation imposed strict censorship, limiting what could be said or shown about Japan's wartime actions and responsibility. This context is crucial for understanding Kurosawa's subtle, often metaphorical approach to exploring these sensitive topics.
So he's navigating these restrictions
Yeah.
while still managing to portray the inner turmoil of these characters.
Exactly. He gives us glimpses into their psychological landscapes, their struggles with guilt, trauma, and the challenges of adapting to a new social order. It's not just about the physical act of coming home, but about the internal journey of healing and finding a place in a changed world.
And this leads us to another intriguing aspect of Kurosawa's films, the blurring of lines between good and evil. His characters aren't always easily categorized.
That's right. Kurosawa was interested in moral ambiguity, in characters who grappled with difficult choices and inner conflicts. The boundaries between right and wrong often become blurred in his films.
This reminds me of The Quiet Duel and The Bad Sleep Well. You really feel the weight of moral dilemmas in those films.
In The Quiet Duel, the haunting opening sequence, set in a chaotic field hospital, sets the tone for the entire film. The protagonist is wrestling with a secret that threatens to destroy his life.
And in The Bad Sleep Well, characters are punished not just for their actions, but for what they know and see. It's a chilling exploration of the dangers of knowledge, of uncovering truths that those in power want to suppress.
Both films highlight the complexities of human nature and how circumstances can force individuals into morally compromised positions. There's a sense that no one is entirely innocent, and everyone carries secrets and burdens.
This has been a fantastic exploration of Kurosawa's early work, and I'm sure our listener is eager to hear more about how these themes evolve in his later films. But before we move on, what stands out to you from this initial dive into his cinematic world?
What strikes me most is Kurosawa's incredible ability to make us feel the weight of history, both personal and collective, on his characters. They're not just navigating these individual dilemmas, they're grappling with the legacies of war, social upheaval, and the changing landscape of post-war Japan.
That's a great point. It's like they're individual stories. They're interwoven with these larger historical narratives, creating this powerful sense of both intimacy and epic scope.
Exactly, and this becomes even more pronounced in Kurosawa's later works, where he confronts themes of memory, trauma, and the passage of time head-on. Films like Rhapsody in August and Dreams offer particularly poignant reflections on the lingering impact of World War II and the atomic bombings.
These films were quite controversial when they were released, right?
They were, especially Rhapsody in August. There's a pivotal scene where an American character offers an apology to a Japanese woman who lost her family in Nagasaki. And some critics interpreted this as an apology for the atomic bombings themselves, which sparked a lot of debate.
I see. It's a reminder that interpretation can be subjective, and that audiences often bring their own baggage to a film.
Precisely. But if you look closely at the scene, you'll see that the apology is much more nuanced than that. The American character, he's expressing regret for his family's lack of understanding and empathy toward the woman's suffering. It's an acknowledgement of the deep pain and division caused by the war, but not a simplistic political statement.
It seems like Kurosawa was more interested in exploring the human cost of war, the individual stories behind the grand narratives, rather than making sweeping pronouncements about guilt or blame.
Exactly. He wanted to create a space for empathy, for understanding the complexities of human experience in the face of tragedy. And he does this not just through dialogue, but through powerful imagery and evocative sound design.
I'm thinking of Dreams, where he utilizes Dolby sound to create these incredibly immersive and dreamlike sequences. It's like he's transporting us into the character's subconscious mind.
Yes, that's right. Kurosawa was a master of his craft, constantly pushing the boundaries of what cinema could achieve. He wasn't afraid to experiment with new technologies and techniques to enhance the emotional impact of his stories.
It's incredible how he manages to balance these technical innovations with such profound human insights. His films are both visually stunning and deeply moving.
That's the hallmark of a true artist. And speaking of artistry, it's interesting to note how the study of Japanese cinema itself has evolved over time. We've talked about the limitations of early scholarship, but what about the current state of the field?
Yeah, what new perspectives and approaches are emerging in academia?
Well, one exciting trend is the growing interest in Japanese film. From scholars in other disciplines, particularly literature, this cross-pollination of ideas can lead to richer interpretations and a deeper understanding of the cultural context surrounding these films.
It sounds like there's a real potential for synergy between different fields of study.
Absolutely, but it's also important to ensure that film is studied as its own distinct art form, with its own unique language and grammar.
Right, not just as an extension of literature or any other medium.
Precisely. Film scholars have a crucial role to play in developing critical frameworks and methodologies that are specific to cinema. And this is particularly important when studying a filmmaker like Kurosawa, who is such a visual storyteller.
His films really do demand to be seen and experienced on their own terms. It's not just about reading the script or analyzing the dialogue. It's about immersing yourself in the visual and sonic world he creates.
And this is where the field of Japanese cinema studies is heading, toward a more global, more interdisciplinary approach that recognizes the interconnectedness of film, culture, and history. It's about moving beyond those narrow interpretations of auteur or national cinema to see how Kurosawa's films engage with universal human experiences while still being rooted in a specific cultural context.
It's about finding that sweet spot, that balance between the particular and the universal. And that's what makes studying Japanese cinema so rewarding. It's a constant process of discovery, of uncovering new layers of meaning and complexity.
Absolutely, and I have a feeling that Kurosawa's films will continue to inspire debate and analysis for generations to come.
I agree. There's a timeless quality to his work that transcends cultural boundaries
Yeah.
and speaks to the human condition in a way that few filmmakers have ever achieved. But I think we've reached a natural point to pause our deep dive for now. It feels like we've only just scratched the surface, though. There's so much more to explore in Kurosawa's films.
Oh, absolutely. We could spend hours dissecting his masterful use of framing, or his innovative editing techniques, or the recurring motifs that weave their way through his films.
Like the image of the lone warrior, facing impossible odds, with unwavering determination. It's a powerful metaphor for the human spirit, our capacity to endure even in the face of overwhelming adversity.
And the recurring use of mirrors and reflections, which often symbolize the duality of human nature, the struggle between good and evil, or the search for self-identity.
These motifs, they add layers of meaning to his films, inviting us to look beyond the surface and uncover the deeper themes and ideas at play.
Exactly, and I think that's what makes Kurosawa's work so enduringly fascinating. He offers us not just entertainment, but a profound reflection on the human condition, on our relationship to the past, and our responsibility to the future.
He challenges us to think critically, to question our assumptions, and to grapple with the complexities of the world around us.
And he does it all with such artistry, such mastery of his craft. He truly was a cinematic visionary, a master storyteller who pushed the boundaries of what film could achieve.
It's been an absolute pleasure diving into his world with you. I feel like I've gained a whole new appreciation for his artistry and the depth of his vision.
The pleasure was all mine. It's always a joy to discuss Kurosawa's work, and I hope our listener is now inspired to revisit his films with a fresh perspective, to uncover those hidden layers, and discover the richness of his cinematic universe.
I have no doubt they will be. So to our listener, if you're looking for films that will challenge you, move you, and stay with you long after the credits roll, look no further than the works of Akira Kurosawa. You won't be disappointed.
And remember, each viewing offers an opportunity to discover something new, to connect with Kurosawa's vision on a deeper level. So keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep those cinematic conversations going.
That's a perfect note to end on. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Akira Kurosawa. Until next time, keep diving deep and keep those minds engaged.